Anyway, here with reaction, Outnumbered co-host Kayleigh McEnany, Fox News contributor Ari Fleischer. All right, let me start with the cocaine issue. You were both in the White House. There's certain areas of the White House, and I saw you both in the White House. I had the honor, you know, occasionally an administration will make a big mistake, and they'll allow me in the building once or twice. But I was there under President Bush and President Trump. And correct me if I'm wrong, Kayleigh, but there are a lot of areas in that White House. I did not have free reign as a guest in that house to just walk anywhere I pleased without being watched by a lot of people. There were certain rooms I was not able to walk into without people with proper credentials escorting me in that room. So how did that happen? And wouldn't they be able to quickly determine who brought that cocaine in that White House?
So that is definitely the case. You could narrow down based on the area. So oftentimes in the Trump administration, we would sit members of the press who are meeting with the president in the press room. So if it's found in the press room, you'd think, okay, maybe the press who has access to this room. It wasn't found there. You can rule out the press. But then you have a series of deductive reasoning. At first, we're told it was in the library under the residence. All right, tourists walk through there. Then all of a sudden the story changed. Now it's in the cubby holes right when you walk into the West Executive entrance. Now, staff brings their guest right through there. The staff guests are primarily who use that. But then all of a sudden, Sean, the story changes once more. Why does it keep changing? Now it's near the Situation Room, an area that only staff would have access to. So I would say at this point, it would have to be a staff member if that reporting is true. There are no cameras inside the West Wing, so that makes it much more difficult. But sit down every staff member. This was on a Sunday, very light foot traffic. Sit down every staff member who had access to that area and try to figure it out. And I assume that is exactly what the Secret Service is doing right now.
Well, I would say it's such a security breach. God forbid, what if it had fentanyl in it, Ari Fleischer, that I would imagine that it would be proper protocol to drug test anybody and everybody that might have had access to that room. And drug testing that is currently available would allow people to give a hair sample, and we'd know pretty darn quickly whether or not they've been using cocaine or not.
Yeah, and the terms for working for the president is you can be drug tested at any time. And so they have the right to do that, and no staffer can or should refuse it. If they refuse it, I think you know what we've got. The only other possibility, of course, is whether or not it's a guest who was brought in by White House staff, invited by the Biden administration officials. That's not uncommon, especially on weekends, for the senior staff or staff with sufficient clearance in the West Wing to escort guests, family members, close friends, to give them that rare privileged West Wing tour. And somebody could have, as they put their phone in that cubby, realize, holy cow, look what I got in my pocket, and they shove that in the cubby too. So I think that's all what the Secret Service is looking for. But I do want to tell your audience something Kayleigh just said, reiterate it. There are no cameras. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people saying on TV, there's cameras everywhere. This should be easy. The Secret Service just wants all their agents to be vigilant on their toes. They don't have cameras in the West Wing.
Okay, let me go to the question. All of a sudden, The Atlantic, all these publications, Maureen Dowd, Axios about Biden's temper, AOC is excoriated by prominent Democrats, excoriated all over social media for supporting Joe Biden. Why do I believe the beginning of the possible takedown of Biden has begun, and it's desired by both the media mob, Kayleigh McEnany, and also by the Democratic Party apparatchik, if you will, itself? They want him out, and they're now looking to push him out. I will give you an example. In New York, it was not Republicans that got Andrew Cuomo out of office. It was the Democratic Party that made that happen. I would argue the people that are pushing Joe Biden not to run are Democrats, and it's now getting louder by the day. You agree? Disagree?
I completely agree. You have an Atlantic piece that's a left-wing publication saying, step aside Joe Biden. At the exact same time, you get the Maureen Dowd piece in the New York Times talking about his grandchild. Just days after you get a piece from Katie Rogers, who's a reporter at the New York Times, excoriating Joe Biden. And then you just said it yourself, an Axios piece, too. And Axios has, in my view, been carrying a lot of the talking points from the Biden administration. You can pretty clearly see that. And then all of a sudden, boom, Axios hits him. It's as if some central memo went out to the press. I do not believe it's just one-offs. I think their end goal, they realize, look, Donald Trump could beat Joe Biden if he's the nominee. It's the last thing the press wants. So they're putting the heat under Joe Biden, but it might be best laid plans because outside of Joe Biden saying, look, the heat's too hot, I'm stepping aside, or maybe there's a pile of money over in China he wants to take advantage of in the private sector life, outside of something like that, I don't see a path to the nomination for anyone else against this incumbent.
Going after, and they gave specific details in Axios, his vicious temper, Ari, and Maureen Dowd going after the 7th grandchild, something I have brought up many times. The fact that he's gotten a pass up to this point is, just more evidence of how abusively corrupt and biased the media is. But Maureen Dowd just laid it out as well as anybody. Never thought those words would come out of my mouth. But it took this long. That tells me how bad they want him gone.
Well, a couple things. One, I don't read Maureen Dowd from the New York Times, but I read that column.
Well, neither do I, usually.
I did read that column. And she is the snide conscience of the Democratic Party. And that was a moral gut punch to Joe Biden and to the Democrats, that the man has done something immoral. And that really hurts when it comes from your own base. I think you said they all got the memo at the same time. I think the memo that they're all seeing and seeing on a regular basis is he's running dead even with Donald Trump or barely ahead. And that scares the hell out of the Democrats. Their calculation is they've got to avoid Trump at all costs, and they think a new generation, a different Democrat, would run stronger against Donald Trump. So they're scared that Joe Biden can't put Donald Trump away. Donald Trump under indictment, and they can't even put him away. Biden can't. So I think that is the realization that's shaking these Democrats that are now putting this pressure on Joe Biden. And I would not be surprised if Biden pulls LBJ 68 and does decide at some point later this fall, early in the winter, that he is not going to run for re-election.
I would not be surprised either. Exit question for both of you. Ari, because you went there first, I'll ask you. Will Joe Biden be the nominee for the Democrats in November of 2024?
Yeah, I really think it's a 50-50 proposition. And I think it's going to be largely determined by his health and by the polls. And if his health in the polls is bad, it won't be Biden. And if any health issues emerge for Joe Biden of any serious nature, it won't be Joe Biden.
What do you think, Kayleigh?
I think he's the nominee without a doubt. I think it's the best wishes of the press that he steps aside. This man you're looking at right there, he's stubborn. He's a stubborn old man. Just go read his quotes to 23-year-old staffers that include many F-bombs and expletives. He's not going anywhere, but you can try your best.
Let me tell you how precarious it is, and I'll take the last word if you will grant me that liberty. I think he's one, maybe two at the maximum, falls away from being pushed out. He is one or two massive gaffes away. I mean, really bad gaffes, not the garden variety daily gaffe, away from a real movement to push him out of the way. But we'll see. Time will tell. Thank you both. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.